Hi, I'm Aaron from ACM Custom Rods. Today we're going to have a talk about some basic techniques for binding guides onto your rod. Once we've got our handle glued up, the first step in the process is to figure out our guide spacings. Actual guide spacings can vary greatly from build to build depending on the location of the reel seat and the size of the reel used. So I'm not going to go into detail on how to actually space each guide. There's plenty of resources available online to help you with that. Once you've got a rough idea of where you want your guides, it is important to check them. To do that, tape the guides in position on the blank, get your reel, fit it to the rod, run some lines through all the guides and load it up. Once we've got the reel on and the line through, loaded up, we just want to go through and check each guide and make sure that the line isn't entering or leaving the guide at really sharp angles. That one's looking pretty good. The final piece of preparation we need to do before we start to bind is to prepare the feet of our guides by grinding them back. The guide on the right is a guide you would have received in your Fuji rod building kit. The one on the left is one that I've already ground back. You can see we've just rubbed down the tip of it just to make it a bit easier to get the thread up over it when we're binding. Once our guide feet are prepped and on the blank, we're ready to start binding. The tools we're going to need for this are something to support our blank while we bind, something to keep tension on our thread, a good pair of scissors, a nice sharp blade for finishing, something we can use as a pull through to tie off our bind. I like to use 30-pound braid for that, and a good little ruler. To start our bind, we take our thread, lay it across the top of the blank, come back up the inside, and cross it over. From there we start our wrap. Once we've got a few done, we trim off our tag end and continue our bind. When we get towards the end of the bind, we drop in our pull through, wrap to our finishing point, cut our thread through the pull through and pull it back under itself to finish it off. We then take our sharp blade, trim away the excess. Get yourself something metal like a spoon and just work around the bind, burnishing it up to hide any gaps that might be there. We're now going to look at putting an internal trim band in our bind. I've set up exactly the same way I did for the first one, with one little difference. I now have a piece of purple metallic thread taped along the blank. I'm going to start my bind just as I did for the first one, over the top, up the inside, and cross over, and start to wrap. To get consistency in your binds when you're doing this, I like to either use a ruler to measure the distance before my inlay, or in this case, I'm going to count threads. So that was my third wrap, fourth, fifth. Now it's time to bring my inlay in. To do that, I'm simply going to take the purple thread, cross it over the grey, wrap it around the blank. If I want to do two, I can do a second, or a third. To finish off, I lock it back under the grey and continue to wrap. And there we have a nice little inlay in the bind. If I want to make it look a little bit different with, say, a spiral, I bring my purple out underneath the grey, and we do the number of wraps we want for our spiral. finish that off, it's simply tuck the purple thread back under the grey and continue to bind. Remembering when we're finished to go back through and give it a burnish to hide any gaps. We're now going to look at starting a bind with a metallic trim band. There's several different ways to do this. This is just the way I've always done it. I'm set up this time exactly the opposite. I have my main colour grey thread taped along the blank, and I'm going to start the bind with my purple metallic. So we're doing our wrap, and we're going to wrap the number of metallic bands we want. So 2, 3, 4, I'll make this one 5. To finish off, we take our grey, cross them over, and start our bind. Once we're into it a little bit, we can trim off the tag ends in that purple. We can also, if you want to, go back and add a secondary one. So I've done my purple to start, I've done 2 wraps of grey, now I'm going to add 2 more purple. Lock it off, and off we go with our bind. Trim our metallic tags off. Finish off our bind, and we can see a big gap there. We're just going to burnish that out.